The night it happened, the clock on my kitchen wall had just whispered past 11:30 p.m. I remember the soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint scent of lavender candles, and my old reading glasses sliding down my nose as I sealed the last set of travel bags for my grandchildren. Each little pouch was labeled in my shaky handwriting: sunscreen, snacks, Grandma loves you. I had been planning this trip for 3 years. Hawaii, the same place my late husband James and I visited on our honeymoon half a century ago. Back then, we could barely afford one suitcase between us, but we promised we'd go again one day, this time with our family. I kept that promise alive, dollar by dollar, tucked into what I called my dream jar. Just as I placed the final souvenir on the table, my phone buzzed. A message from my son, Nathan. "Mom, you won't be joining us. Tanya prefers to keep it just her family. You've already done your part by paying." At first, I thought I'd read it wrong. I blinked, reread it. My heart slowed like it needed time to understand. Another message followed. "Don't take it personally, Mom. It's just simpler this way." Simpler. That word stung more than the rest. I sat there for a long time, the blue glow of the screen fading while my mind replayed every sacrifice, every skipped lunch, every tutoring hour, every envelope of cash I'd tucked away instead of treating myself. I had booked their flights, paid for the villa, arranged the transfers, and even made sure Tanya's mother had a room on the ground floor because of her bad knee. Yet somehow, I was the one who didn't fit. I stared at the half-packed duffel bag sitting beside me. Inside were 2 sundresses, James's photo, and a lavender candle I'd planned to light in his memory at the beach. In my mind, I saw it so clearly. My grandson holding my hand, asking about the grandpa he never met, but that dream vanished with a few cold sentences on a glowing screen. They didn't even bother to call. That night, shame sat heavier than sadness. I wasn't angry yet, just hollow. The kind of emptiness that makes the wall seem too wide for one person. I reached for my phone again, but couldn't bring myself to type. What could I say? Please let me come? No, I couldn't beg my own child for a place in a family I helped build. So instead, I turned on my old laptop. Its soft hum was the only sound in the room. The folder named Hawaii Travel Fund blinked on the screen. The number appeared, $21,563.84, the sum of my years of quiet hope. With one click, I could freeze every payment. One click could stop their trip before it even began. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I opened a blank document and began typing names. Not of my family, but of women I knew who'd been forgotten too. Carol, Louise, Beverly, Frances. Friends from church who'd spent years giving everything and being seen by no one. And that's when something in me began to shift. What I did next didn't come from anger. It came from clarity. The kind that only arrives when love turns to silence. You'll want to hear what happened the morning I finally made my decision. By sunrise, I hadn't slept. The pale morning light crept through the blinds, spilling over the kitchen counter where my phone still lay face down. Every few minutes, I found myself glancing toward it, half hoping, half dreading that Nathan would call. He didn't. Instead, I made coffee the way I always did for 2 people, then stared at the extra cup until the steam faded away. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest until you can hear your own heartbeat. I thought about the years that had led to this moment. The dinners where Tanya corrected me in front of the kids, the holidays suddenly moved to her mother's house without mention, the family photos taken without me to save time. Every small cut that hadn't drawn blood but left a scar. Still, I had convinced myself love could fix it, that maybe if I kept showing up, kept giving, they'd remember who I was. But that text was the truth, written without hesitation, without warmth. You've already done your part by paying. That sentence became a drumbeat in my mind. I opened my laptop again. The Hawaii Travel Fund account was still open, the numbers glowing like a secret waiting to be told. Linked cards, 6. All of them pulling from my account. Flights, resort, car rentals, excursions, food packages, all in my name. That's when I realized something simple but powerful. I was the foundation of their dream, and without me, it couldn't stand. Still, I hesitated. I didn't want to be cruel. I just wanted to stop being invisible. So I gave Nathan one last chance. I typed a message. "Hi, sweetheart. Let me know if you like help packing the kids' bags or snacks for the flight. I have motion sickness bracelets for Olivia. It was soft. It was love speaking, even through pain. Hours passed. The message was read. No reply. I sat back, folded my hands, and let out a long breath. There it was, my answer, plain as day. It wasn't about misunderstanding or Tanya's preferences. It was about entitlement. They didn't forget me, they dismissed me, and that's when the silence inside me turned from weakness into strength. I opened the bank app again. My name gleamed at the top. Account owner, Marilyn Rose. Underneath, a small toggle button. Freeze account. One click. Just one. But I didn't press it yet. I looked at the clock instead, 8:15 a.m. Their flight would leave from LAX at 10:45. If I froze the account at 8:15 just as they lined up at the gate, they'd find out the way I did, through quiet certainty. No yelling, no revenge, just balance restored. Still, I whispered a small prayer before I did it. Lord, don't let this be hate. Let it be peace. Then I pressed the button. A tiny blue message appeared. Freeze mode activated. All transactions paused. And just like that, it was done. I sat there for a while, sipping my coffee as the world outside began to wake. Somewhere across the city, they were packing their bags, smiling for selfies, thinking everything was paid for. They didn't know the cards in their wallets had turned to ghosts. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt steady. But silence doesn't stay quiet forever. Not when people start to lose what they took for granted. You won't believe what happened when the airport called my name that morning. At exactly 8:27 a.m., I placed my phone face down on the kitchen table. The freeze was done, the coffee was cold, and the silence in my house had changed. It wasn't the silence of being ignored anymore. It was the silence of peace. I knew they'd be arriving at the airport about now. Tanya with her color-coded luggage, Nathan pretending to be calm, the kids clutching their stuffed animals, and Tanya's mother giving orders like a cruise director. They'd be laughing, chatting, maybe even taking selfies. And then, at check-in, they'd hand over those shiny travel cards. Beep, declined. I didn't have to see it to know how it went. I could picture the look on Tanya's face, that tight smile that never reached her eyes. The confusion turning to irritation. Nathan's voice growing strained as he told the agent to try again. 10 minutes later, my phone began to buzz. Once, twice, then over and over. Mom, something's wrong with the account. Hey, I think the card's not working for some reason. Can you check? Mom, please call me. We're at the counter. I didn't answer. Then came the voicemails, his tone shifting from frustration to panic. Mom, please. The kids are upset. The lady says the payment isn't going through. I don't know what's happening, but we need to fix this before the flight. Still, I sat quietly in my kitchen, my hands wrapped around that chipped mug I'd had since before Nathan was born. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even smiling. I was simply still. When the resort email arrived 30 minutes later, I opened it slowly. Dear Ms. Monroe, your villa booking has been canceled per your account authority. All charges have been reversed. It was official. The phone rang again, this time with Tanya's number flashing across the screen. I let it buzz until it stopped. Then a new message popped up from Nathan. Mom, if this is because of the text, can we please talk? There it was. Not an apology, not remorse, just damage control. They boarded that plane with no villa, no rentals, no plans. And for once, I didn't rush to fix their mess. I simply stood by the window, watching the neighborhood kids ride their bikes and realized I had finally stepped off the hamster wheel of always saving the day. That afternoon, I took a long walk. The air was cool, carrying the smell of blooming jasmine. A neighbor waved and asked, "Heading anywhere for spring break, Marilyn?" I smiled and said, "Not yet, but soon." When I came home, there were more messages. 53 missed calls, a handful of texts, and one last voicemail from Nathan. Mom, look, maybe we handled things badly, okay? Maybe we messed up. The kids are crying, Tanya's upset, but we can fix this. Please, just unlock the account. We'll talk when we get back. I listened to the message twice, not because I doubted what he said, but because I wanted to remember how it felt to finally not feel guilty for saying no. They wanted the vacation without accountability, the forgiveness without change. But love isn't a blank check. So I deleted the voicemail and whispered to the empty room, "Lesson learned, sweetheart." That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly. But what I did next surprised even me, because this story wasn't about revenge anymore. It became something far more beautiful. Wait until you hear who I took to Hawaii instead. 2 days later, my travel fund account pinged with a series of notifications. Refund processed, refund processed, refund processed. Every dollar I'd spent was quietly finding its way back to me. The flights, the villa, the excursions, the private dinners, all reversed. My balance climbed higher with each alert until it was full again. But this time, the number on the screen didn't represent a dream for others. It was freedom. Mine. I sat at my desk, staring at that total, $21,963.84. For years, I had poured my heart into this fund, believing it would bring my family closer. But I had been wrong about who family truly was. So I reached for my notebook, the one filled with James's old fishing recipes and family birthdays. On a fresh page, I wrote 3 words at the top, the forgotten women. Below it, I listed 6 names. Carol, Frances, Nora, Beverly, Diane, and Lucille. Each one a woman who had given everything and received so little in return. Carol, whose son stopped visiting after she beat cancer. Frances, who raised her grandkids but wasn't invited to their graduations. Nora, who once told me, getting old isn't the hardest part, it's becoming invisible. And sweet Beverly, who had never seen the ocean. I made 6 phone calls that day. Each started with the same hesitant, hello, followed by my simple question, would you come with me to Hawaii? There was silence, then disbelief, then laughter, and finally, tears. You're serious? Why me? Because someone should, I said, and because you matter. For the first time, that trip was built not on obligation or appearances, but on gratitude. I booked a smaller villa this time, cozy, sunlit, with a long wooden table big enough for 7 women to sit shoulder to shoulder. When we arrived, the air smelled of plumeria and salt, and the sound of the waves felt like forgiveness. The first thing I unpacked was James's photo, framed in walnut, the kind of wood that grows darker and more beautiful with time. I set it at the center of the table, right where it was always meant to be. That night, as the sky blushed into orange and the ocean whispered beyond the balcony, we gathered for dinner. Carol wore a bright scarf and poured everyone wine. Beverly toasted to finally being somewhere I don't have to clean up after. Frances cried when she saw the view from her window, her first view of the sea. We didn't talk about who forgot us. We talked about who we remembered. We didn't compare scars. We showed each other strength. Every night, we lit 1 candle beside James's photo. Each woman shared 1 sentence, something she wished someone had told her when she was younger. You don't have to earn love. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. Their voices trembled at first, then grew steadier, like waves finding rhythm again. That week, laughter filled every corner of that villa. We danced barefoot on the patio. We watched the sunrise from the shore, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small or forgotten. I felt seen, because this was the family I'd been searching for. But the story didn't end there. When I returned home, I found an email waiting in my inbox, one that would test every ounce of peace I'd found. You'll want to hear what my son wrote next. 3 days after we returned from Hawaii, I sat at my desk surrounded by half-unpacked bags and the soft scent of plumeria still clinging to my clothes. The ocean was gone, but the peace stayed with me. Quiet, steady, like a heartbeat that had finally found its rhythm. That's when I saw it, an email from Nathan. The subject line read, "Just want to clear the air." I hesitated before opening it, letting the cursor hover over his name. When I finally clicked, the words appeared. Neat, careful, too polite to be sincere. Hi, Mom. We're back. Things didn't go as planned, obviously. I guess some of that's our fault. Maybe things got twisted. Tanya was stressed and didn't mean to exclude you. You know how she gets about structure. Anyway, we had to rebook things on credit, and it's been rough financially. If you're able, could you maybe consider returning the deposit we gave for the trip? We're still family after all. Love, Nathan. I read it twice, then a third time. Each word felt smaller the longer I looked at it. Deposit? As if they had ever paid anything. As if love had been some kind of business transaction. They hadn't deposited a dime. Not in the account, not in effort, not in kindness. I had funded the entire dream, and they were asking for a refund on betrayal. I leaned back in my chair and thought of the women I'd sat beside in Hawaii. Their laughter, their tears, their strength. Not one of them asked for anything but presents. Not one of them measured worth by money. That was the difference between love and expectation. I didn't reply to Nathan's email. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood some lessons must echo in silence. Explaining would only invite more excuses, and I was done giving away my peace for explanations no one deserved. I closed the laptop, poured myself a glass of iced tea, and stepped out onto the porch. The wind stirred the old wind chime James had hung years ago, the same one that I used to sing softly on our wedding anniversaries. It rang a gentle note, and I smiled. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like someone's afterthought. I felt whole. Later that evening, I walked down to the shore near my home. The sunset painted the water in shades of gold and pink. I pulled out the last lavender candle from my bag, salhani, the one I'd planned to light for my family in Hawaii. I set it in the sand beside me and whispered, this was always meant for peace, not pain. The flame flickered, then steadied. Behind me, I could almost hear laughter, the kind that comes from women healing together. I thought of Carol's dancing, Beverly's toast, Nora's quiet smile. I realized something profound. I hadn't lost a family. I had found one. When the tide crept up and touched the candle's base, I whispered the truth I had been holding for years. I'm not sad anymore, and I meant it. Because freedom doesn't always come from fighting back. Sometimes it comes from finally walking away, with grace, with clarity, and with your own heart still intact. I looked up at the sky, where the stars had just begun to appear, and smiled. James, I said softly, I finally did it. I took them to Hawaii, just not the ones I expected. And somewhere in the sound of the waves, I swear I heard his laughter. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever given everything to people who forgot your worth, remember this. You are not invisible. You are not replaceable, and your story still matters. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories, where silence becomes strength and every memory becomes power. Like, share, and subscribe, because when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens.